Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to TUF Division 1. We're here at round 2 today. We're in China. Hopefully we will follow on from a superb opening race in Australia. Plenty of action, some fantastic drivers, and let's hope we have more of the same this evening. We had the Division 2 race last night, which was also in China, which Henry won. So congratulations to Henry. I do recommend going back to watch that stream. There's plenty of action, some fantastic commentary from the guys there. Moving on to today's race, we are at China, as I've mentioned. It's been held here 14 times so far as a Grand Prix. It was first held in 2004. We're looking at a 28 lap race tonight, with potential to maybe have 1 or 2 stop strategies. Now, last night in the Division 2 race, we had some guys do the 1 stop who excelled compared to where they would normally finish, with the greatest respect, and some other guys that maybe didn't do so well on a 2 stop strategy. So it's going to be very interesting to see how people qualify. I would guess that quite a few people will have seen that last night, and they will probably then qualify on the soft tyres. I think we'll get a real mixture tonight, some different strategies, some different people leading the race at any given time. So yeah, it should be really, really interesting. We've got 16 corners in China, and the track is 3.4 miles in distance. So we have real potential for a really exciting race here tonight. I mean, tyre wear, as we know in China, is pretty high, one of the highest on the calendar, I would say. So it's going to be really, really, I'm going to be keen to see how people adapt, how people can maybe manage their tyres. Are people going to push themselves to the limit and maybe, you know, risk the tyre wear on a track like this? It's going to be really, really interesting. Looking back after the last race in Australia, we did have Good Aids that took the victory there quite comfortably. His closest competitor on the evening, Fuzzer, is unable to race this evening, so that's going to be great news for Good Aids. Hopefully he can push on and have a really, really positive race tonight, and maybe extend his gap, because as we know, Fuzzer is an extremely fast driver, so he can take all of the point advantage that he can get at the moment. We do have a debutant tonight by the name of Dobby, I believe. He's going to be replacing Chris Logan in the Sauber until sort of further notice. It's a shame to see Chris go. Hopefully we'll have him back sooner rather than later. So I mean, there's a couple of things to point out this evening. I mean, especially after last week's race, we had a couple of sort of bad lag spikes, Miles in particular, if I'm not mistaken, in the Williams. So, you know, maybe, I mean, I know that caused a few problems last week. So again, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how these sort of things pan out. There's going to be plenty of action here tonight, so I hope you guys will stay with us. I will do my best this evening to try and get as much action in as possible. I am commentating on my own this evening. Last week with Jester, I think, was a bit of a novelty. It's not going to be too often, so you guys are going to have to get used to my voice, unfortunately. Just a couple of things to touch on really before we start knuckling down with qualifying. Most people are kind of on outlaps at the moment, as we tune in with Pubster Randy. I mean, first point, he wasn't there last week, and we all know Pub is an extremely quick driver, representing the Haas this year with his new gamer tag. So it's going to be, well, we're going to see this evening whether Pub can bring the form that he had in F1 2016 into 2017. It's his first official race in the league, so he's already a bit of a disadvantage of the fact that he's 25 points off the leader as it stands. And as we know, people like Good Aids and Fuzzer don't really miss too many races or cause themselves too many problems. So how Pub is going to fare up this evening will be a good representation of maybe how he's going to go in the league this year. So just going back through the results of Australia last week, we had Good Aids who took the win. We had Fuzzer in the Mercedes in second place. We had Luke, who took a podium, who's a Division 2 driver. He stepped up and raced last week, and he had a fantastic result. Now we had the two Ferraris, Beast Move and Sao Paulo, in 4th and 5th. We had Frank, another reserve driver, in 6th place. We had Corey, who had an excellent race last week. One of my drivers of the day took home P7. Then we had the 2 Williamses of Miles and Carl, who took 8th and 9th, and then Chris Logan took P10. Now, if we just have a little flick through the field, I believe we got close to a full grid this evening. We've got George Allison, who is a reserve driver, who's going extremely slow at the moment. We do have Shay. Shay could cause an upset this evening. Just depends on his consistency during the race. We all know Shay has fantastic pace. It's just whether he can keep the consistency together. Now let's hope he's got a good setup for this evening and he can really push on and maybe upset the odds slightly. Just tuning in with Corey, as mentioned, he had a superb race last week in Australia. Really stood out, did some fantastic overtakes and came home in P7 for the Force India, with his teammate actually taking the win. So really good start by the Force India boys. Excuse me. Be Smooth is another one that he could really challenge this evening, with the likes of Fuzzer and Mr Ice Cold Andy missing out again tonight for the 2nd time in a row. Some wheel issues, I believe. This is an opportunity for people like Be Smooth, Carl, moving on to the next one, to really push on and get some good points under their belt and get themselves back in the running. So if we just tune in with Miles, we'll see how his lag is faring up this week. It all doesn't look too bad so far on my screen. So let's see how it fares out in the race. Hopefully it isn't too much of a problem. Now, this guy that we're tuned in with at the moment, Sao Paulo, if you want my honest opinion as a commentator, I said this last week and I'll say the same thing again, he really is one to watch out for, as we see Carl go for a bit of a spin there. He really is one to watch out for. I think Sao Paulo is an extremely quick driver. He was very good on F1 2016 and now he's reached a whole new sort of level on F1 2017. So the Ferraris themselves are looking like a really strong team at the moment. So again, let's hope they can upset the odds and prove that this evening. We'll just tune in with Carl, who's had a bit of a moment off in the gravel, which isn't too unlikely for Carl. I believe Carl, oh dear, is doing some Need for Speed underground drifting. He's hit his wheel. Yeah, interesting. Just on that note, probably not the best time to tune into Carl, so mate, I do apologise for that. Carl has just joined the AOR Racing League. Probably not the best time to announce that after that, but I believe he's gone into the 4th tier, which is a fantastic achievement for him because he's a very quick driver, very skilled. And when Carl's on form, we saw that last year because he's the current world champion of the 50%. We've seen what he can do and what he is all about. So hopefully he can go. Again, Funky this evening with his teammate JW in the Red Bulls, following on from last season in the Toro Rosso. They've stayed together. Again, very consistent finisher, Funky. I'm sure he'll be looking towards some points this evening. I think at this stage of the championship, what the guys need to really do is cut out what was happening last week in Australia. We saw too many people trying too hard to kind of over-impress in the first race of the season. And that's something that we really don't want to see too much. Obviously, we like it from our point of view because we like to have good action. It gives me more to talk about. But I think from a driver's perspective, I think the people who are the most consistent, people that don't try to push the limits too far, are the ones that are going to kind of excel this evening. A couple of tricky corners in China. The first one in particular, it's really important to get your line right. Obviously, if you brake slightly too late, you're going to go really deep and lose yourself loads of time, and give those that are behind you the opportunity to close the gap or have an easy pass. It's quite a windy circuit. So, you know, and towards the end of the lap as well, we've obviously got the really tight hairpin, and in the final corner as well, it's really important that you clip the outside apex and cut the corner nicely, foot down, hit the curb nicely so you get a good exit onto the home straight. Perfect example for that there from Good Aid, so thank you very much for that, mate. Saved my embarrassment. We'll stay on board with him because it's looking like he's going to be qualifying on the soft tyres, so possibly going for a one-stop strategy tonight. I think Good Aid was watching with a keen interest last night as to how it can benefit him or how it can be a negative. And speaking with him today, I know he's done a little bit of practice around the track today, and he was saying that the one stop is definitely a risk well worth taking. We saw him do it last week in Australia, and it got him the win. can he do it again, or will other people actually have seen that and noticed that maybe that is the way to go? Obviously on F1 2017 the tyre wear is much better, rather than on F1 2016 you literally had to do about half a lap and then pretty much half your wheel was hanging off. It was a little bit over the top of the tyre wear on that track, on that game, sorry. So we'll stay on board with good aids. I believe he's on a flying lap at the moment. Hammer down, coming out of the snarl section, takes that lovely, stays on the racing line pretty much the whole way through. Again, that's where time can be won and lost in the race. DRS down along this very long back straight. And now coming up to see where his braking zone is. Yeah, just before the 100 metre board. Takes that lovely, as you can see by the racing line on the track. He's pretty much standing on it the whole time. Again, takes the final corner lovely, clips the curb, DRS down. And at the moment, obviously, we can't have a fair representation of where that's put him on the grid due to the sort of slight glitch with the race director at the moment, as we see him retire from the session. With just a minute and a half to go in the session, it's going to be very interesting to see where the guys line up. Let's hope for a clean start tonight. I'm sure we can expect a few incidents. As mentioned, I'll try to hit as much of the action as possible, but just bearing in mind that, you know, it's only one of me this evening, so I might not be able to catch all of it, especially for those that are racing. If I do miss an incident or an overtake or something like that, please don't be offended. It was nothing personal. I was just watching something slightly more interesting at the time. As we see a few guys retiring now who have finished off their laps. Let's have a quick look at the race director and see whether it has given any sort of indication. Yeah, as we can see, we see Be Smooth, Miles, Carl, so both Williams drivers, Good Aids, Funky and Pagani all qualifying on the soft tyres. So that is 3, 4, 5, 6 drivers out of 16. So again, we're going to see lots of different strategies tonight. Obviously damage, and wing damage in particular around this track, can cause you real problems because of how windy it is. So if you do get wing damage, you're pretty much going to have to pit straight away. You can't really soldier on. We saw that with Luke last night in the Division 2 race. Towards the end of the race, he was in a really good position and got a bit of wing damage, and he just fell off the pace, and then ended up finishing P7, I believe, or P8. So that really damaged, and that reduced his gap at the top of the championship down to just 3 points. So yeah, like I said to you, it's going to be very interesting this evening. We'll stay on board with NR as he comes through. Again, this flowing right hand is quite difficult to take, but he does a very good job of it. Clips the apex nicely, seems like a very clean lap so far. A little bit too much curb he's taken there as he comes down towards the end of sector 2. Hard on the brakes, cuts in on the racing line perfectly, and takes a nice flowing right hander here. Does he have to lift off at any point? Okay, foot down. Hits the DRS. Pushing the car all the way to the limits. Brakes slightly later than Good Aids there, so he's going to be a bit deeper into the corner as we've seen. Hits the apex. Oh, loses a bit too much time there, I would say. Still a fairly solid lap though from NR, which puts him in P4. So as we saw, it was a very good lap. Maybe if he'd just taken that final corner slightly better, then we are well away. The debutant Dobby takes pole on his first race, so congratulations to him there. So we've got Dobby in P1 in the Sauber, JW in second, Sao Paulo third, NR in fourth place, Pub in fifth, Good Aids in sixth on the soft tyres, Memo in seventh, Carlsberry in eighth on the softs, George Alice in ninth, Corey in 10th, Shays in 11th, Miles in 12th, Be Smooth in 13th, Funky in 14th, and Shone and Pagani didn't set times. So we've got a few soft runners, super soft. So yeah, we're going to see a lot of battles tonight, I think, given the amount of pit stops that are going to be occurring at different times. Not a lot of people following each other's strategies, hopefully. We should be in for a lot of action. and I'm just receiving some word that we are expecting a bit of rain at the end of the race. So again, that could really mix it up. So I hope you guys are looking forward to this as much as I am. With 15 seconds to go, the guys will be sitting there just bracing themselves, figuring out their race strategy. It could affect the one-stop runners actually, obviously depending on when the rain comes, whether it's right at the very end or whether they do have to pit slightly earlier for some intermediate or wet tyres. So as we line up with the leader, we are 5 lights and we are away in China. By the looks of things so far, everyone's had a reasonably good start, nothing too manic has happened. See JW pushing up the inside line of Dobby there. Not too much in the way of incidents. Can JW nick the lead at the start of the race? And Dobby holds it together quite nicely. Good start from the Ferrari of Sao Paulo there as well, who goes up into second. Oh, just runs off ever so slightly, so he's going to concede the position back. And we're going side by side. All Pubstar just clips the McLaren of NR, as we can see. If we have a quick look through towards the back of the field to see if there's anything that's happened, or Funky's obviously had an incident as well as shown. And Shea has fallen off ever so slightly as well. Started on the medium tyres, which I don't think was a bad call whatsoever. So let's rejoin with the leaders. So we've got Dobby in P1, JW in second, Sao Paulo in third, Pubstar's gone up 1 place into fourth, taking a position off NR. Good Age has moved up into 5th place as well. Carlsberry is sitting in P6, Memo in 7th, NR's moved down to 8th. As we can see, Miles going for a move to go on board. Is he going to brake later? No, just tucks in. There's a little bit of lag there. Yeah, as we expected, there's a bit of lag from Miles. It's important for NR to try and stay ahead. Oh, bit of a connection there. Let's hope there's not too many issues again with Miles, because it really affected quite a lot of guys last week. As we see B Smooth, he's just a couple of seconds off the pace there, with Pagani on the mediums just behind him, who runs slightly wide into turn 1, which is going to allow Corey to put the pressure on. He's on the super softs. We see a move from, I didn't see that was in, that's from his brother, from Shea, who was overtaking Corey. I know they're side by side. Let's hope the guys can keep it together. Corey obviously on the quicker tyres. Oh, Shea hits the back of Pagani. Hopefully there's no wing damage there. Let's ride on board, see if he's got any wing damage, and it doesn't look like it at the moment. As we see Shea really putting the pressure on Pagani here. Pagani runs slightly wide. Hopefully the camera angle sorts itself out soon so we can see what's happening. Yeah, and Shea gets through. So after a slightly disappointing start from Shea, he's made up a few places. We see Dobby, who's really pulled off from the pack. We've got JW just over a second behind, Sao Paulo in third, Pubstar in fourth, and we see Good Age in fifth. We'll just stay on board with Good Age for a second, as we see Miles going to have a look up the inside of NR. No, he's going to maintain his position very sensibly. Oh, the Mercedes of Carlsberry had quite a poor exit there. Go on board with a couple of guys towards the back. Now we've got Pagani. He's very close to Shea approaching turn 1. Is he going to have a look up the inside? These two are very good friends. Let's hope they don't jeopardise each other's race. Very clean move from both of them there. Well done, guys. Held it together nicely. No oversteer occurring, which can happen sometimes if you get that throttle a bit too early as you're turning the car. Is Pagani going to have a look? No, he's not. Now what has happened to Corey? Corey has come into the pits. So, and by the looks of things, he has gone onto the soft tyres. So maybe a bit of wing damage there for Corey, which is what jeopardised his start. Shown all the way down in 16th, just coming over the start-finish line, dropping off some way. So we're right on board with Dobby, who Again, I don't know too much about, but early signs suggest he's a very, very strong racer. Can he get a win on his debut? That will be remarkable, especially with the standard of the racing in this league, with the guys such as Good Aids, as Fuzzer, and some others. So, as we see Shone unfortunately retire from the race, I will try and find out what's happening. As we see a virtual safety car, so some guys have dived into the pits. How many guys will make a pit stop? Looking towards the back, we've seen a few go in. We'll jump on board, maybe a bit too prematurely. Yeah, NR's come in. Be Smooth hasn't. Shay's boxed. Pagani's ran very wide there by the looks of things. So yeah, we will. Some guys this may have worked in their favour. See Dobby going very slow under the virtual safety car. So just whilst the field is going a bit slower, we'll have a quick run through the field. So we've got Dobby leading from Sao Paulo. We have Pub in third place. I love this camera shot. Shows how quick the cars are going. Good Aids in P4 on the soft tyres, which I'm sure he'll be very happy about. Carlsberg in 5th, again on the soft tyres, with Memo just behind on the super softs. Hopefully Memo can have a good race tonight, nice and clean, not too many near misses or wobbles. We know he's a quick driver, but as mentioned before, can be slightly reckless. We've got Miles in P7, who is on the soft tyres. Be Smooth in 8th, Funky in 9th on the mediums. So he's in a good position at the moment. Pagani in P10 on the mediums. JW is pitted from 2nd to go down onto the soft tyres. We have NR in 12th on the mediums. Shay in 13th, I believe, is on the soft tyres. Yeah, he's on the soft tyres. George Alice in 14th on the mediums. Corey in 15th. And he is at the back of the field. So we'll rejoin with the leader, Dobby, who has a 3.5 second gap from Sao Paulo. Looks like they've got a little bit of air. Or as we see, Good Aids has passed Pub with Carl just behind. So very, very beneficial for Good Aids to get past that early. As we see, we'll stay on board with these guys for just a moment. Maybe we'll go on board with Pub because he's in the middle of the action. With his all black helmet representing the Haas this year, it's weird seeing Pub driving in a car other than Ferrari. So maybe it was either just obviously a clean overtake there from Good Aids, or maybe Pub's ran wide slightly. As we've seen before, it can happen on this track. It's very easy to run wide, lose a good half a second with one little mistake. Now, Carl was very close to the back of Pub. Are we going to see a DRS move from the Finn on the back straight? Oh no, he's ran quite wide. Hope he hasn't jeopardised him too much. Lovely shot as he applies the DRS. Obviously Pubstar will have it as well on Good Aids, but it looks like he's going to have too much pace at this point. It's nice clean. Pubstar runs very wide there, which allows Carl to really close up the gap. As we see Memo running wide in the distance as well, which allows Miles to close up on him. As I believe Sao Paulo has pitted. Yep, Sao Paulo has pitted. He's fitted the medium tyres. So we'll rejoin this little battle. So that puts Good Aids up to P2 with Pubstar in P3 and Carl in P4. Very good drivers, these three, who will be very familiar with each other's driving style. Carl obviously representing Finland there with the white and blue helmet. He's got rid of that gold piece he had last year after winning the championship. He brought himself back down to earth a little bit. Very clean driving from these guys here, not a lot of mistakes are made. The differences between these three guys here is literally if one of them makes a mistake, the other two will capitalise on it. That's the sort of fine margins that we're talking when it comes down to raw pace. I'd say they're all very similar, so it's going to be very hard to pass one another. As we've said before last week, we have Good Aids, who is an extremely consistent driver, hits all the apexes, doesn't crack under pressure. I know he's looking obviously to extend his gap at the top of the leaderboard tonight, and it is the perfect opportunity to do so. Obviously Dobby is leading the race at the moment, which is remarkable, and I do wish him well for the race. So we'll just stay on board with these two just here, with Pub and Carl. I believe Pub, yes, he has come into the pits, as has Miles. So quite a lot of early pit stops here as JW promotes himself back up to 8th. They're under a bit of pressure from Funky here. Who is his teammate, obviously JW on the quicker tyres, so you would expect a slight gap to form between the two of them. Pagani's promoted himself up to P8. So Paolo's come out in 9th, obviously familiar that most of the guys ahead of him are going to have to pit. I believe he pitted from 2nd place. So in healthy position at the moment, Sal. I know this year he's taken a lot more into consideration his strategies and his tyre wear. We've spoken about it several times. Obviously moved on to the commentary team towards the Division 2 side of things now, which is great to see. We've got NR the American in P10 and his fellow countryman Pub in P11 with Shay in P12. It's just going to have a quick flick through the field now, see if there's any battles going on. Most of the guys have sort of spread themselves out a fair bit. So we do have Dobby in P1 with Good Aids, who's just under 6 seconds away, who seems to have pulled a bit of a gap to Carl. I know Pub was in between the two of them, but Good Aids seems to have pulled up maybe about a second on Carl, maybe just under. As Memo pits from P4 off the super soft tyres, so we'll stay on board and see what his strategy is. I would imagine he will probably go onto the medium tyres. Obviously this year as well, pit exits are very important, making sure that you hold the clutch and release as quickly as possible. Now it goes onto the soft tyres, so we're looking at a 2-stop here from Memo. Again, there's so many ways that you can win or lose, just, you know, fractions of time, which can make huge differences, especially in a league as competitive as this. So, you know, even pit entrances, pit exits, even being released from your pit crew, again, vitally important. So the guys have had a fair amount of practice under their belt, so hopefully we shouldn't see too many mistakes on that part. Just thinking about it as well, there's a lot of opportunities to pick up some penalties in China, just a little bit of overshooting corners as well, so you never know, that may well impact the results towards the end of the race. We saw that last night of Division 2. We still have Corey in P15, which I'm sure at the moment he will be slightly disappointed with his track position, but he will be well aware that there is still 20 laps to go in this race. So I don't think he will be too aggrieved as it stands. As we've got the leader here, we're right on board with Dobby, just to we'll do an onboard camera with him for half a lap or so, just to see what lines he takes and how consistent his racing is. At the moment it seems like it's very consistent, although he's taken the soft tyres quite some distance by the looks of things. Nope, still hasn't pitted. Yeah, he's the last of the super soft runners not to have pitted, so hopefully he doesn't overshoot his tyre wear. We see Pub doing the fastest lap of the race with a 1:35.4. Yeah, as we see Dobby, his fuel light is blinking, so he's obviously trying to push the car to create as much of a gap as possible, but as mentioned, tyre wear in China is very poor, so I know he's going to be really on the limit now, where he starts to fall off the pace. And obviously with the guys behind him, Good Aids and Carl, who we have mentioned are both very quick drivers who are on the soft tyres. Good Aids, I believe, going for the 1 stop tonight, rain dependent. with less than 5 seconds. So he's pulled just over a second off of Dobby since the last time we checked in. I know Good Aids has been altering his helmet, no pun intended, for his F1 career mode, so by the looks of things it looks like he's just done Monaco. He'll probably laugh at me after this for getting that horribly wrong, but it was worth a try. Carlsberry sitting in P3. Yeah, seems to be sort of maintaining the distance behind Good Aids. I think Carl will be very comfortable, as I believe Dobby has... Yeah, he's come to the pits. Right, the race leader comes in. So he is going on to the soft tyres. So again, we will see a 2-stop from him. So, given the early pace that he has, and the strategy that the two guys that were just behind him were on, I'm keen to find out how much the strategy does depending on this track. Obviously, he was just under 5 seconds ahead at the time of pitting. Obviously, you're going to have to make one more stop. So let's see where they end up. Hopefully, he has a clean race. He looks good so far for some really good points, if not a race win on his debut. He's come out just behind Funky. So that means he's lost out. Yeah, he's lost out a little bit of time because JW was behind him towards the start of the race. Who's really putting Be Smooth under some pressure here. So JW has actually jumped Dobby. If we just try and figure out, so he's 13 seconds there. Yes, he's pulled out about a 5-second gap on Dobby there. I know, and now Dobby is trying to get past JW's teammate, who I'm sure will want to hold on to position for as long as possible, which will only benefit JW. So we're staying bold with this, with Dobby on the fresh soft tyres. Really closing up on Funky here. The grip and the traction so much better with Sao Paulo and Pub just behind. Dobby's going to go for a move or ride on board. You see him go side by side here. He's just edged ahead. What's his line going to be like? Taking a very narrow line, working very hard. Yeah, and he holds it nicely. Yeah, good move from Dobby there. Yeah, demonstrating some good pace because Funky's not the easiest person to overtake. Does stick to his guns very well, and will ride on board with Pubstar, who is chasing down Sao Paulo. Again, hopefully these guys will be licking their lips at the little battle that's going on in front of them. So we're going to have 4 cars extremely close together very soon. Yeah, very nicely taken through the first sector there from Pub. He got too much pressure behind him. Who's that in the distance? That's Pagani. Pagani again in a healthy position. He's on the medium tyres, I believe. Yep, medium tyres. As we saw, I'm pretty sure I saw a lock-up just then. You'll see how we are having to lift slightly, which will compromise a little bit of time. But I'm sure he won't be too fussed about that. I'm sure he'll be looking to get past Funky as soon as possible. Yeah, Dobby's pulled off about 1.5 seconds up the road from Funky. So he's going to be chasing down JW. We'll go back on board with the leaders. I believe it is Good Aids. Yet we have Good Aids in the lead. With Carl, who's dropped off a little bit, he's 2.5 seconds behind. So maybe Carl has, either Good Aids has cranked up the engine, or Carl's had a slight wobble at some point. If I'm not mistaken, he's gone down to obviously no assist now, racing in the AOR League, which in itself is very impressive. So in front of everyone that's watching, I'd obviously like to congratulate Carl for doing that. I'm sure other people will do so as well. And I'm sure Good Aids will after this race has happened. At the moment, I'm sure he's looking at him with fire in his eyes, not wanting Carl to put him under too much pressure. Yeah, JW's in third. So we have about a 10-second gap between second and third place at the moment. So the one stop looks to be pretty healthy at the moment. Obviously JW going on to a 2-stop strategy as a minimum. Obviously I know we are looking at possible rain at the end of the race. The clouds don't look too bad. Yeah, we've seen JW get past Be Smooth, and Dobby's going to be closing up. Sao Paulo and Pub have both passed Funky. So maybe a little bit of tyre wear there for Funky. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, I will just double check, he hasn't stopped yet. No, he hasn't. Neither has Pagani behind him. So yeah, a few of the guys still haven't stopped as of yet. We'll have a very quick look. We've got JW has a 10-second time penalty for exceeding track limits. So that's something to bear in mind towards the end of the race. Obviously, I won't go on that too much because I don't want to compromise the view of the drivers on track. Yeah, as you see, Good Aids has extended his lead by about half a second, so probably about half a second a lap from what we've seen, which again I'm pretty sure Carl won't be too disappointed with as it stands. I know Good Aids is going to be pretty angry this evening as his beloved Leeds lost to the Cardiff of Shay, so I'm sure there'll be a bit of banter flying about for that. Be interested to see when these guys are going to pit. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it should be at the end of this lap. I'm going to throw that out there now. Yeah, we've got JW who is slightly closing the gap, not by much, probably about 2 or 3 tenths per lap, which is a comfortable distance. Be Smooth, yeah, with Dobby flying up behind him, but again that fuel light is blinking, so Dobby's really on the cusp. Eventually he's going to have to pop it down to lean at some point. As you see Be Smooth lose the back end ever so slightly. He will be well aware that Dobby is behind him. As you see Be Smooth goes very deep into the corner. Is that going to benefit Dobby coming out? Had a very good exit, closing right up to the back of the Ferrari in the Salvo, which we don't see too often. Maybe if he drives like this, he'll take the permanent seat off of Pascal's airline. As we see him go up the inside, goes quite deep into the corner. Both run off track there. I think his line was too narrow, and Be Smooth has obviously followed him there, not wanting to lose his position, but ended up compromising more time as we see him dive off into the pits. So Sao Paulo, his teammate, would be well aware of that. He would have known that there would have been some time lost. As we see, yes, so JW has taken over the lead of the race. Dobby has gone up into second. Sao Paulo third. Good Aids has come out in P4 on a one-stop strategy, only 7 seconds away from the leader. With Funky behind him, who's on old mediums. You wouldn't expect him to be put under too much pressure there, with all respect to Funky, just due to the fact that he's got older tyres. Carl has come out behind Funky, so he's going to have a job to do there. Looks like he's lost a little bit of time to Good Aids, maybe slightly more than anticipated. He has NR behind him, who's running on mediums. Most of the guys on track are running on medium tyres, apart from a couple who are on the softs. Towards the back we have Shay in P9 with Miles just behind. Not really close enough to be looking at a move at the moment. We've got George Alice in P11 and Corey relatively close in P12. Be Smooth come out in P13 after all of that, so I'm pretty sure he's on a one-stop strategy as well. But we've seen the difference that, you know, a little bit of lost time on track where it can jeopardise. Obviously, Good Aids and Carl have come out in P4 and 6 respectively, and Be Smooth's come out in P13. So he's obviously had a slight incident or maybe a wing change or something like that, and it's compromised him that much time. Those are the sort of fine margins that we're talking. As mentioned, we have Pub in P14 at the moment, who fuel light is on, so he's going to be pushing. He's going to have to drop it down to lean at some point. He has DRS on Be Smooth, but he's far too far back at the moment to be looking at making a move unless Be Smooth goes deep, which it doesn't look like he's done. As Pub oversteers coming out. And we have Pagani in P15. So JW looks comfortable at the moment, although his fuel light is on. Dobby is 5.5 seconds back from him as Pagani has retired from the session. What a shame that is. Hopefully it wasn't anything too drastic for him. We've got Sao Paulo there, who is in P3 with Good Aids, putting loads of pressure on them fresh medium tyres, which he'll be looking at to go towards the end of the race. I'm sure it'll be more than comfortable for him. As we see, Carl has got past Funky, and we have Memo and NR very close together, so we'll stay on board with that. Coming out of the Snell section, what's the grip going to be like? Is he slightly too far back at the moment? Yeah, I think he is. DRS will be down, although Memo doesn't have DRS, so NR's really going to close the gap up on him. Hopefully there's no silly dive bombs. NR takes the corner nicely. We'll stay on board going on to the start finish straight. Again, we're seeing a lot of guys here that are really pushing the car. We're seeing a lot of guys with the fuel light on at the moment, so again, I don't think at the moment it is necessary to be really pushing that much. I know people like to look up and not see their grid position too far down the order, but equally it's about using your brain, guys, because there's going to be a lot of guys on track that will be looking at doing two-stop strategies. I do think the one-stoppers will benefit the most from this race today, and as it stands, tip Good Aids and Carl to take home P1 and P2. As we see, Dobby has retaken P1. So what's happened to JW? He's down in P8, 17 seconds off the pace. Has he made a second pit stop? He has indeed. So he's now on the super soft tyres, which he has got to take 12 laps. Now, in my opinion, that is slightly too early. Let's hope that doesn't cost him too much time towards the end of the race. So yeah, we have Dobby, the field has started taken. There we go, and we're right on board with Good Aids, who's looking to make a move, who's edged ahead of Sao Paulo. Nice narrow line there. Sao Paulo will look to do a switchback, and no, he won't. The line wasn't able enough to let him do so, although I'm sure he's going to be putting the pressure back onto Good Aids there, and Carl will be in the distance and he'll be well aware of what's going on in front of him. So Sao Paulo locks down the DRS. And Good Aids comfortably takes P2, I believe, and maybe we'll see a slight gap for him. I wouldn't have thought too much because, as mentioned before, Sao Paulo is a very good driver, and I think the guys that are currently in second, third and fourth will take the podium today. In what order, I'm not too sure. I'm probably going to tip, at the moment, I'm going to tip Good Aids for the win. He looks to have quite a lot of pace. He's already pulled a bit of a gap over Sao Paulo. Nothing too major, but for what it is. And we have Carl in P4. So I'm going to tip the guys that are currently in second, third and fourth to finish on the podium. I won't guess an order, but I will tip Good Aids for the win. I'm undecided on Sal and Carl. Just to mention as well, Funky is still on the medium tyres, 17 laps into the race. Obviously they would have been fresh at the start. I don't believe he qualified on them, but he's finding himself under pressure from NR and from JW. JW obviously on the super soft tyres, who's going to be on a real rampage now to try and push himself back up the field. JW could find himself in the mix actually, because as it stands, Dobby does have to pit again, if I'm not mistaken, from the lead, and he's on the super soft tyres. It just all depends. And there we go, fastest lap of the race he's just set as well, as we see Funky and NR extremely close, with JW closing up. Funky goes slightly wide. Has that allowed NR through? It has. And what about JW? Is he going to try a switch back on him? No, I think he'll just want to hold position. Funky's held that together really nicely actually. Considering how old his tyres are, he's doing a fantastic job. As we see NR going down the inside, and JW takes advantage of that move. Really instinctive driving there from JW. I think Funky went slightly too deep, or maybe just didn't want to get himself involved in a battle that really didn't concern him at the moment. I'm sure he'll just be looking at getting a consistent points finish with no problems. As we see JW and NR going side by side, and JW has made the move already. So we see here a man on a mission. Down in P8, just a few seconds down the road from those guys, we have Memo. And Miles in P9, who has got past Shea. I'm pretty sure they were in a reversed order some laps ago. Hopefully it wasn't too much lag. I know there was an issue between those two last week with lag. As we see George Alice down there in P11. Be Smooth still down in P12 with Pub in 13th. And Corey down in 14th. That rounds off the current grid. So with 9 and a bit laps to go, will we see rain? The clouds are starting to get a bit darker, but I don't think there's going to be anything that's going to really impact it too much, unless someone decides to have a massive hissy fit and piss all over China. I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to compromise the guys too much. I'm pretty sure we saw Good Aids in the distance there. Yeah, he's less than 3.5 seconds, really pulled a gap. As we see, Carl has got past Sao Paulo. Both guys there with their fuel lights on. Good Aids not. Yeah, 3.4 seconds is the distance with Good Aids, with Carl, my apologies, just over 2 seconds behind. Pretty sure Sao Paulo will again be very comfortable. He'll be aware that Dobby will have to pit again. Although he will be quick towards the end of the race on the super soft tyres. I'm sure he will go on. Let me just double check that I'm not talking rubbish. Yeah, he is on the soft tyres at the moment. As we JW has pulled a big gap on NR already, as well as NR has on Funky. Funky needs to be careful. Hopefully he doesn't leave it too long. My guess is that he'll probably come in this lap. Because 19 laps on medium tyres is obviously very good going. He's obviously very good at conserving his tyre wear. My guess is that he's going to box now. If he doesn't, I'll be quite surprised. No, he's staying out for one more. Okay. So if he doesn't come in at the end of next lap, I'm going to be shocked. Because we've seen the guys behind him, Memo and Miles. And what has happened to Shea? I think Shea's had an incident because he's dropped right off the pace and finds himself at the back of the grid, just behind his brother Corey. Yeah, we see Good Aids has closed up another couple attempts on Dobby, with Carl about 1.8 seconds behind. So again, we could be in for a very good end to this race, because it looked like Good Aids were just going to pull away and create a bit of a gap, but Carl, even though the fuel light is on, he's going to be pushing, and we know how quick he is. Obviously the reigning champion is not going to want his crown to be taken too early. Had a bit of a poor one in Australia last week. And JW is really on the back of the guys now. But as mentioned, he's still got to do another 8 laps on these super softs. So I think he's going to be very high in tyre wear coming into the race. Yeah, Funky's not letting NR get too far out of his sights. Let's stay on board. Is he going to come in? Is he going to box? No, he's not. He's staying out again. Maybe he saw the fact it was going to rain and thought maybe he could take the mediums all the way till then. Just a suggestion. As we see, Miles did have our DRS there on Memo. And we see George Allison Pub, the two hash drivers in the background, are getting quite close together. But let's stay on board with the race leader for the moment whilst not else is happening in the race. Yeah, and we see Corey coming out in P14, Gone onto the intermediate tyres. I couldn't really see too much in the way of rain there. Nothing really. Oh yeah, it's coming down quite a lot now. That happened extremely quickly. Maybe it wasn't coming up too much, but the guys like, wow, the track is soaking. That has happened extremely quickly. As we see, Miles has retired from the session. Some of the guys, the leaders, are now pitting for intermediate tyres. Now, how good is Dobby in the wet? We know Good Aids is very strong in the wet. What has Carl done? Carl has followed them in. Sao Paulo again. Is anyone going to stay out? Nope, JW's had a bit of a wobble going into the pits. I can't believe how quick that has happened. Either they've had the rain for a lot longer and it's not shown on mine, or someone has actually pissed all over China. See a lot of guys going very deep. Yeah, it looks like everyone's pitting. Yep, so everyone's pitting. So what will this do for Corey now? Come around the hairpin. He was quite a way back, but is he going to jump a couple of the guys? Oh, so now look, we see a cube from George Alice and Pub, so Corey is going to take position. And Shay. So where is Corey? He's come out and he's in the points. There we go, and he's on the back of B Smooth. Corey is a very, very good driver in the wet. We'll jump on board with the leaders. Yeah, as we see, Good Aids is really applying the pressure on Dobby. We'll go on board with Good Aids. Who conveniently has raindrops on the back of his Force India. I would appreciate if the camera angle did change to allow me to look. There we go. In my opinion, it's only a matter of time before Good Aids makes the move. With some fuel spare as well. What's the distance like behind him? Yeah, we've got a few seconds gap now. Got about 5 seconds. Sao Paulo's comfortable there as well. Let's see how Dobby copes under pressure from Good Aids. He's looking fairly strong at the moment. Good Aids does look like the quicker out the two, but he's certainly not giving up without a fight. With 5 laps to go with the Grand Prix. We'll stay on board with this for just a second, just to see if there is any mistakes made or any moves attempted. I would like to thank Pagani for informing me of the rain towards the end of the race. I wasn't sure we was going to see any because the clouds really didn't look that bad earlier on, and I am so shocked as to how quickly the events have turned around. What's the grip like? What's the traction like of these two guys as they approach the back straight? Yeah, Dobby doesn't look like he's cracking under pressure. Good Aids getting very close. Dobby just blocking him off there as he attempts to go around the outside. Traction down, and Good Aids, can he stick it? He has indeed. Excellent move. Well done, Stephen. Now, let's take this opportunity to have a quick look through the field. So we see Good Aids in P1, Dobby in P2. Carl some 5 and a bit seconds off the pace, but I'm sure he'll be comfortable. Sao Paulo, a couple of seconds behind Carl in P4, very comfortable. JW doing a big drift going into turn 1 in P5. NR is in P6. Most of the field fairly spread out at the moment. Funky is in P7, so his strategy call, he may stick a massive middle finger up to me for that, because I was thinking that he'd thrown away a good result there. I didn't realise how quickly the rain was going to come down. So he certainly shut me up. So well done to you, Funky mate. I hope you have a strong end to the race. We see Memo in P8. Now, how will Memo drive in the wet? We know his car can be a bit back-end happy sometimes. Will we see any mistakes? We obviously saw Miles retire when the track started to get a bit damp. Beast moves in P9. Oh, and we see George Ellis and Corey going side by side. George Ellis takes the last points place from Corey as it stands. But as we know, Corey is very strong in the wet. Corey in P11, Pup in P12, and Shade in P13. On board with Grenades, who has pulled a bit of a gap already on Dobby. So, as we might have expected, is 1.5 second gap. And we've got Sao Paulo, who's closed up to Carl. It was about 2.5 seconds when I last looked. He brought it down to about 1.7. So, good driving there from the Ferrari driver. We'll just let's see if there's any battles going on. If not, we will ride on board with the race leader Grenades for a lap of the Grand Prix. See George Ellis with Corey just behind. Brakes a lot later than George Ellis, but sticks it nicely. George Ellis with the fuel light on as well, so he's going to have to turn down the engine at some point if he wants to get over the line unscathed. Big word for me that. I'd like to thank Susie Dent from Countdown for that one. Yeah, not too much happening, so we'll ride on board with Grenades. Yeah, as you can see by the gaps already formed, like I said, it's about just over 1.5 seconds now. What we'll do is we will stay on board with Grenades for a proportion of the next lap. As mentioned earlier on, he's a very consistent driver. He hits the apexes, whether it's dry, wet, snow, anything. He's very comfortable, very comfortable. Rarely makes mistakes, and in that last sector, yeah, he's maintained the distance, which I'm sure he'll be happy with. I would like to see the race director, and I think now wouldn't be a bad time to do it. Obviously we know JW is sitting on a 10-second penalty at the moment, and that was the only one last time we looked, as Corey's fallen off the pace a little bit there. I don't know what I'm doing with the camera. There we go. So we'll stick it on Grenades as we have a quick look at the race director. Shay's gone onto the wet tyres. So we have JW with a 10-second penalty. Pagani's obviously retired on 3 seconds. Memo has 3. JW has an additional 3 seconds. So yeah, so it's only really Memo that has 3 seconds and JW has 13. Lovely helicopter shot there. And if we look at JW, so 13 seconds off of that, so he will, as it stands, lose a position out to NR. So let's see whether JW can maintain a bit of a gap, as we see him pull away by about a second from that last sector. So it looks like he may well, fortunately, hold on to his P5. As we approach and cross over line to lap 27, and the gap has extended by about half a second into 2 seconds. We have Carlsberry in P3 with Sao Paulo, who is gaining ever so slightly on Carl, so you can tell he's very comfortable in these conditions. Can we see a move from the Ferrari driver to get that last place on the podium? Obviously had quite a strong start to the season if he finished in P4 in Australia, P5 in Australia, sorry, and looking like a minimum P4 here in China. I must admit I did incorrectly get the race calendar, incorrectly called the race calendar. I said it was going to be Bahrain today. For a grammar school educated man, that was extremely stupid of me, so I can only apologise. I'm just flicking through the field as you see Memo going a little bit sideways. Yeah, there really isn't a lot going on. So if we think about the benefits of this for Good Aids today, so that's going to put him on 2 wins out of 2, 50 points in the championship he will have. Obviously Fuzzer is not racing, so he's going to have a 25 point gap on Fuzzer, and Luke was in 3rd after last week, so Good Aids is really going to extend his gap at the top of the Drivers' Championship today. The next car down was Be Smooth, who is currently sitting some way down the order, and I believe this will push Sao Paulo into 2nd place of the championship. Yes, it will. So Sao Paulo will take 2nd in the championship, so this is a good opportunity for Sal to cement his place. I know he wants to be challenging at the end of the season, and with performances like this and sitting 2nd after 2 races, providing all goes well, then what better way to introduce your title challenge? So as it stands at the moment, there isn't too much going on. So we have Good Aids in P1. W's dropped off. Doesn't look like there's too much pressure going on behind. If we're just going to quickly flick through the field, JW's closed up a little bit on the guys, and he's currently just about holding off to be able to cement his 5th place to stop NR from getting it. Funky in P7, really good drive from him. Most of the field is extremely spread out. Yeah, so let's ride on board with Good Aids as he comes down towards the back straight. Can he just hold it together now, as he always does? He can indeed. We will ride on board to watch him cross the line. Just goes to get a little bit more moisture on the tyres. Again, takes the 2nd to last corner, lovely. Comes through to the final corner. Lovely shot of him doing it there. And we see Good Aids take the victory. Congratulations, Steve. I know he is going to be jumping for joy, and he will tell me about that very shortly, I'm sure. As you see, Dobby come home in 2nd, Carlsberry in 3rd, Sao Paulo in 4th, and someone in the background, I believe that's Shay, crashing out. We see JW come home in 5th place, so he's going to hold off from NR there. I think the gap was too big. See Funky in P7, Memo in 8th, Be Smooth in 9th. He's going to be really disappointed with that. George Alice in 10th, and Corey just missing out on P11, unless there's been some penalties that we are unaware of at this point. As Memo runs off, actually, what's the gap like to Be Smooth? I'm pretty sure Be Smooth is going to take over Memo's position there, because Memo had a 3-second time penalty. And as Pub crashes out, before crossing the line, we'll go through the classification one last time. So, not loads to talk about today. The field was quite spread out. Obviously we had the the change in weather, which, you know, maybe shifted a couple of places around, but everyone was quite well spread out as we see Good Aids lift the trophy. Congratulations to you, my friend. We see Dobby have an extremely strong debut to take P2, so well done to him. Really solid drive there. And we see Carlsberry take P3, last season's champion. So we see the three guys there having a nice little cuddle on the podium, spraying each other, getting each other wet. And I won't say anything more because that will be explicit content and I will get told off. So nothing really changed from the final order, apart from Be Smooth jumping over Memo there to get into P8, which will be slightly better for him. As far as a driver of the day goes, looking at some positions, I would say, I mean, the obvious choices would be, I mean, Be Smooth jumped up from 13th to 8th. Funky had a really good race today, really impressed with him, from P14 to P7. Carl's got from P8 to P3, no penalties, using no assists if I'm not mistaken, but I don't think you can look past Good Aids. Again, no penalties, started on 6th, knew his strategy, knew exactly what he wanted to do, and then had to make a move on the ever-present race leader Dobby towards the end of the race and win by a fairly comfortable margin. So 2 wins out of 2 for Good Aids. I'd like to thank you all for joining us this evening. We are at Bahrain next, and that is actually correct. We have the Division 2 race tomorrow night, which I'm racing into. Please come and support me. And then Thursday you will hear me again commentating on the Division 1 Bahrain Grand Prix. I'd like to thank you all for joining. Please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you need to do as long as it involves TUF. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will catch you later on.